Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Dev Marketer channel. Today's video is part 11 of our how to build an advanced blog and CMS. You guys are loving this series. I'm basically taking you along for the entire ride as I build the website that I'm going to be using every single day. This is a big undertaking, and I'm showing you guys every step along the way. So I know a lot of you guys want to see every step that I do. I don't want to leave anything out, and that's what I'm trying to do here, is show you guys every step. Now, today's video, we are working towards the goal that I mentioned in the previous video, which is that we're trying to work towards building an interface, a user interface that we can use to manage our users and give them certain roles and permissions. Okay, we added the Laratrust, and now we want to work towards being able to manage users, create new users, give them certain roles, take roles away from them, give them permissions, and so forth. That's the goal. Now, of course, to get there are always several steps to get there. And so today we're going to tackle the first step. Really not that hard, but that's what today's video is going to focus around, which is creating the backend interface. Nothing too complicated, but we're just going to create a backend interface, create a menu for that, and basically set that all up so that future videos that require us to manage and work and develop the backend will basically go through without a hitch, because we've kind of set the foundation for our backend interface. Now, before we jump into that part of the video, I want to quickly take a deviation just to mention that I did do some minor changes to the code base between the last video and this video. And so if you want to take a look at what those are, they're all available on GitHub. I commit everything to GitHub so you guys can see the code on GitHub of all the changes. So just go ahead and take a look at the last code update. You may need to go through actually, because by the time you guys watch this video, there's probably going to be another update to the code. But if you go ahead and look at this minor changes to clean up blade files and straggling sass, if you take a look at this commit, you can see I made some minor changes. Added some background colors here in the CSS. I took the code for the navigation that we wrote in the last video, didn't change it, but I did move it out into a partial. So now inside of our includes folder, we have a nav folder, and I called this main because it's our main navigation. And so I moved all that into this partial file. So now we can just call this partial file instead of having it hard coded into our template. Okay, so that's not, the code didn't change, just moved it out. In our login and register files that we worked on in the last video, I changed the color of the button. I wanted it to be green instead of that teal primary color. So minor stuff. Got rid of some comments. You can see this is a blade comment from some of the old code that we didn't need anymore. Just deleted it instead of keeping it in there. Just minor stuff, okay? These are just more comments we killed. Here's where I include some of the partials. There's the partial right there. So just minor stuff, okay? So you guys can go through and take a look at this. Nothing exciting, not really worthy of a video. Just wanted to blaze over it so you could see it. Okay, so now what I want to do is create that backend. What we're going to do is basically create the backend interface, create all the stuff necessary, the routes and so forth, and just lay the foundation for our backend. Pretty simple stuff. What I want this to be is everything at the /manage is going to be our backend interface. Now the backend is only going to be available to certain levels of users. These are users that are basically have access to contribute content or manage content on the website. So these aren't just like general website users that might, add forum posts or might like a blog post or something or want to leave a comment or something like that. It's not those types of users. We're talking about users that actually create blog posts, create video tutorials and so forth, and want to manage that level of the CMS. Okay, so this when talking about the roles that we created in the last video, we're basically talking about administrators and super admins, editors, editors, authors, and contributors. Okay, so those are going to be the roles that would have access to this backend here, where we can basically manage posts, and we'll also be able to manage users and manage other portions of the website. So we're going to restrict access to just those people through some middleware using Laratrust. Okay, but first, before we do that, we actually need to create this URL prefix, and so we can throw everything in here and actually have some, sensible URL structure. So to do that, let's go through and start in our routes file. So in our routes file here, what we're going to do, I'm actually going to do it up here at the top. We can do after routes, authentication routes. We're going to create a route, but this time we're actually going to create a route group. Everything I mentioned is going to be prefixed with this manage. Okay, so everything's going to be manage/users, manage/dashboard, manage/posts, things like that. We want a bunch of URLs that all are focused around that manage. So that's what we're going to do here. So it's manage, and then we're going to call a group, and then everything is going to be inside of this group. So when we have a group here, what we can do is just our normal URLs. So for example, we can have a dashboard. Give this a name. We're going to call this manage.dashboard. And take a look at that. So now if we run in our routes real quick, you can see we now have this manage/dashboard available. That's the name for it. And so even though here we just write dashboard, it's actually everything's prefixed with manage. Okay, so it makes it really nice for managing those URLs because everything we put inside of there is already going to have this level of the URI to it. All right, so now we got that. Let's go ahead and give this a controller to use and an action. So we're going to create a controller called manage controller. And let's give it, we're going to use the dashboard action. Let's go ahead and do that here. And then let's also go ahead and create, well, let's do that. That'll be good. So let's go through now and create that controller. Okay, pretty basic. So now we got that. Controllers, manage controller. Let's go through and make our action. Perfect. Let's return a view. Nothing crazy right now. Okay, so now we're going to return this view called in a folder called manage, called dashboard. So now let's go ahead and make that view. So that'll be inside of our resources folder, views, and let's create a folder called manage. There we go. Inside of that, let's make a file called dashboard. Perfect. And then now inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to extend, but I don't want to extend the normal template file, the normal app template file. That's going to be the layout template for the rest of the website, for the whole front end, like user-centric part of the website, the part that the world sees. I am going to have a different look and feel and so forth for the back end. I'm going to have different navigation and different components and so forth on the back end. And so it's nice to keep those separated. They can be completely different, and that's what I'm going to do here. So instead of extending the normal layouts.app, I'm going to extend the layouts.manage, and that'll be the template file for managing that our backend, for our backend website. And then we'll just have content here, just normal stuff. Now, before we run this, we actually need to now make this template file because it doesn't exist. So it's pretty easy to do. Let's go into our layouts file. We already have our app.blade.php. Let's just duplicate it. And this time we're going to call it manage. Perfect. Everything inside of here is pretty basic. We don't actually, for right now, I don't need to make too many major changes. All this meta can stay the same. I might get more creative here. In fact, actually we can. In the title, it's called Dev Marketer Management. There we go. And then the one thing I want to do, I will go ahead and keep this top navigation for a little bit. We might customize it in the future, but one thing I want to do is we need to have a side navigation. And this side navigation is going to be how we manage, basically move around the different portions of what we're managing, okay? So we're going to have several sub areas that we manage, from posts, videos, payments, users, all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to want to do now is I'm going to have another partial that is going to be another navigation element, but it's going to be our side navigation. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to go into our includes file, nav, and then I'm actually just going to call this manage because this is the management navigation. So now we need to go ahead and make this partial. So let's go up to our partials inside the navigation, and let's make a new file for our manage. Perfect. And then inside of here, we can go ahead and start building that side navigation that's going to be on the left-hand side of our website, what you've seen in a lot of admin portals. So what I'll do here is we're going to wrap everything inside of side menu. And that's just because I want to throw this all to the left. It's going to be positioned. It's going to be fixed in a fixed position on the left. I want you to be able to scroll vertically through it and so forth. So we need to have all this wrapped, and we'll have some CSS to define that. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's go through and actually create the navigation. So what I'm going to do is just follow the general Bulma navigation. Bulma has a vertical navigation. Since this is only visible to me, there's no point in getting too crazy with the navigation. I just need it to be usable and make sense. So I'm not going to go through and like create a bunch of custom CSS for my navigation that only the administrators are going to see. So we'll just stick with the default Bulma one. It looks good. It's functional. It's going to do what we want. So let's go ahead and write that. So everything is inside of an aside. Okay, so this is a good starter for us right now. We don't have a lot of other stuff we're managing yet, but soon we'll have a section for like our content and for different things like that. Maybe analytics and reports and stuff like that. But for right now, this is all we really need to get started. These are going to be what we need for the first beginning, where we manage roles and permissions, users, and we'll have basically an admin dashboard. Okay, so now that we got this out of the way, we've got this is our side menu. And that's going to be included here inside of our template. And then we still have our section called content. So now our dashboard file is going to extend that. So the content inside of here will extend everything inside of that template file up here. Okay. So, okay, that's good. That's everything we really need for now. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in the browser. It should all be working by now. If we go to /manage, we get an error. Okay, so this is a routing error. There is no /manage URL. Okay, I kind of should have seen that coming. So we have this prefix called /manage, but there is no basic /manage URL yet. So let's go through and just make one real quick. And all we're going to do is, if someone just goes to /manage, it'll redirect them to /manage/dashboard. Okay, so that's a tongue twister. All right, /manage/dashboard was what we're going to redirect them to. Now, the way this works, though, you can't really do this in line that I know of, at least. If someone does know, you can I guess we could do a closure and redirect to there, but that's dirty. Let's do it this way. Manage controller, we'll do index, and then inside of this method, we'll just redirect over here. So inside of the manage controller, let's make another one. Okay, so that's how we're gonna do it. So if someone goes to just normal /manage, we'll just do a full redirect to /dashboard, and it'll just be a full like HTTP redirect. That's good for me. So let's now take a look at that, and let's do a redirect. Okay, a refresh, I mean, from manage, which takes us to dashboard. So if I just delete this again, run it again, it just redirects us to dashboard. Okay, here we go. We've got our navigation on the side. Let's go do some styling just to make this an actual sidebar, which it's not currently right now. So to do that, we just need to open up our CSS. Let's close some of these unnecessary files and go to our Sass. And actually inside of our Sass file, what I want to do is create another file just for our backend CSS. And in the future, what I'll probably do is actually have like an app.css. Oh, that's not what we want. Hold on. Hold that thought. Not blade.php. This is Sass. Okay. There we go. So in the future, we'll probably just have like an app.css or CSS file that we render, and then we'll have like a manage.css, because we'll have like plugins that are only like, you might have some charting plugins like for graphs and stuff that they have a lot of JavaScript that you got to, load in, but it's not necessary to have the front end users load that in, because they're not going to be using any of those graphs, just as an example, and some of this other code. So I like to have two separate files. We'll have our app.css and maybe our manage.css in the future. For right now, I'm just going to keep them combined for simplicity right now in this series, but I will move them out separate at a future point. So that's why I want to start having them in separate CSS file, SAS files, so that later I can compile them separately. And in the different template files that we've created in our views, we can also pull in different ones in that way. So this is going to help keep them separated, and so we don't have too much like unnecessary code. So for right now, let's just go ahead and do this side menu because it's pretty basic, but I just want to explain why I'm doing them separate for right now. Okay, so let's go through. We're going to create a fixed position on the left-hand side. We want the height to be 100 view height, and then let's do the width. We'll just have fixed at, say, 200 pixels. We'll do a background color of white. And what else would we need here? I'm just trying to think. Let's do a scroll. So overflow Y, if they scroll vertically, or if the menu is taller than we need it to be, it'll just scroll. And I think that's all. That'll basically be it. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that, and let's now pull it into our app.css just for now. We'll probably do a separate file in the future. Okay, so now we should have access to it. Let's go back, refresh. Sure enough, it looks pretty good. Let's give it some spacing on top and on the side, and I think that's really all we need to do, to be honest. Let's just go into our dashboard here, or into that template file. Where's that template file at? Manage, and let's just give it some styling with, oh no, let's go to that partial, sorry. Let's see, navigation manage. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so the menu that we created, let's just use our helpers here and give it some top margin of, say, 30 pixels and some left margin of 10. And let's see how that looks. There we go, that looks good. Okay, so I think that's a good start. Really the last thing that we have here is if somebody is logged out, so I'm not currently logged in as a user, because you can see it says log in and register, and I try to access manage, it'll still let me access it. It's not actually protected by any middleware right now. So let's go ahead and just protect it by middleware so that only the people with the editor, contributor, author, administrator, and super administrator roles have access to this manage dashboard. So to do that, we can just go over to our routes again, and we can give this this entire group middleware. And then the middleware, we're going to say we're going to restrict it by role. Okay, so only people with the roles that we want to list will have access to this. Okay, so the role was super administrator, or administrator, or editor, or author, or contributor. Okay, so if somebody has access, somebody has one of these roles, any of those roles, they would have access to the backend. Now, as we get more complicated with the backend, we'll restrict certain parts of the backend to more specific permissions, but we'll get there when we get there. So one step at a time. So for right now, it's only the people that are logged in under one of these roles will have access. So that's a good step for right now. Let's go ahead and save that. That's all it takes to add middleware to this entire group. So everything inside of here, both routes that we've created, will be restricted there. But as this list grows bigger, as you can imagine it will, then it's going to be a lot easier to manage with this group to middleware. So let's take a look in the browser now. And I am logged out, as you can see up here. There is no one logged in. So if I refresh, I would expect to get booted off of this page. Okay, and we do get an error page. Now, this might seem scary, like you did something wrong, but it's not really. You can see here what actually happened is an abort 403 was thrown. So what you're actually getting here is an HTTP error, a 403 HTTP error. Now, that kicks in an exception, which it's an HTTP exception, obviously, because it was an HTTP error. So that, shows our error page here. But really what we got was a 403 page, which is what we would expect. So if someone doesn't have access to it, we want to show them a 403 error, and that's what you got. That's what we're given here, okay? So I think that worked out pretty good. That shows that they don't have access. Now, if we go to our login page, and of course, we could do a redirect if we wanted to. That's another option. You just edit it in the Laratrust settings or in the exception handler. But whatever, let's log in. I like just doing the permission not granted 403 error. It tells Google and other people, it's just like a set system. It's kind of the way it should be. Now let's go ahead and log in as our super administrator. And this time we should have access to it. Okay, oh, super administrator. Okay, super administrator and then password. Log in. There we go. So now we're logged in. It says, hey, super administrator. Yeah, so that's working. And if we go to manage, okay, this link doesn't work. We'll get that set up here. But if we just go to /manage, we should have access to this. And we do now, okay? So sure enough, we have access to that. If we log out, we should no longer have access. Perfect, we get the 403. Let's now log in as another user. We're gonna log in as an editor this time. Okay, now we're logged in. Oops, we're logged in as an editor. And now let's go to manage and we have access as well. Okay, so any of those roles will have access to it. Let's go just make this button work and then we'll be good to go, I think, for getting our backend set up. So to do that, of course, nothing crazy there. All we're doing is going to our layout file to this. Oh, it's inside of the navigation partial actually. So navigation main, and then we're going to, here we go, under manage, let's just create a URL here. There we go. Okay, so now that will go there and redirect. So now if we click this, it takes us there. So let's go home and now to manage, and there we go. Okay, there we go. So now we have the beginning of a backend. We have a backend, only certain users have access to it, and so forth. So the next step is going to be to create the inside of the backend here. We want to create a page to manage our users. This users is going to require a full level of CRUD. So we need to be able to create new users, view users, obviously, update them, and delete them. So we're going to need to build full CRUD inside of here, and we need to create a UI to do all of that. So that's going to be the focus of the next video. And then once we have the ability to create users, update them, and so forth, then the next job is going to be the ability to manage the permissions for all those users that we can manage. Okay, so while we're managing users, we'd also have access to manage the roles and permissions for those users. So we kind of got 2 more steps ahead before we can finish the goal that we're working towards. But we did go ahead and create the backend here for our dashboard and everything like that. So, okay, so I will see you guys in the next video where we work on this, and we are really starting to see this application come together.